Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, presented by Cattle, Season 4, Episode 20. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
We have one of our solo episodes for the people this episode, our first of the year, actually, the calendar year. We wanted to spend some time diving into this important research. It's been a busy and eventful week. But for those of you who love our guest interviews, don't worry, we'll be back live from Israel with the founder of Remilk, talking all about the potential for lab-grown, created milk just approved for sale here in Canada by the CFA. So
yummy.
Very interesting, interesting stuff. We love to talk about innovation and
I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago, and I heard about the op-ed, and a lot of people are intrigued by the technology. They don't really understand it.
Yeah.
Is it a disrupting technology? Absolutely. I mean,
and we're the third nation. Is it Israel, Singapore, and us? Is that do I have the order right?
I'll be honest with you. Health Canada's call was quite surprising. I mean, it was quick. It was surprising. So, and of course, I was in Ottawa this week, and a lot of people were talking. So, what does that mean for our supply management regime now and dairy? I mean, we have $25 billion worth of quotas here. So lots of questions, and of course, there's lots of misinformation out there. So I'm glad that we'll be talking with the president of Remilk and get to the source.
Yeah, very interesting. And I got a bunch of questions about the future and the tech and all that stuff. So we'll get to that next episode. So let's dive right into the news and what we're going to talk about for this episode. Let's start with this survey on farmers' trust. I read through the survey. I have it here in my hands, released yesterday officially. And, I looked at it, and the first chart on the first page, I mean, holy jumping, was the first of two gulfs of differences of opinion. I mean, the gulf of confidence between the generations. When I look at, I'll give the listeners a high level. How confident are you that our farmers are good custodians of the land? 55 plus, 41% were extremely confident. But at 18 to 34, only 18%. That's a massive divide. Yeah. What's going on here? What were your observations of? And that's not the only generational gap. We saw some urban and rural gaps. Like, talk about why you did the study, and talk about what you thought about the results.
So this was our first project with Léger. So we're pretty pleased with our partnership, our new partnership with Léger. So shout out to Léger and Jean-Marc Léger, who's a really great leader when it comes to surveying Canadians. I would say that the survey is quite telling about how people feel about farmers. I mean, as I said in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, I think we're getting good at listening to farmers, but I'm not sure we understand them. And especially the younger generations, they are becoming quite skeptical of what they're hearing. I don't think that the trust factor has been impacted towards farmers. Everyone loves farmers. I mean, people love to talk to farmers. We're talking about farming. Practices around farming.
I'm glad you said practices around farming. It is the root of all this skepticism or mistrust or lack of trust or whatever you want to call it. It's really, the science and the GMOs and the kinds of crops and pesticides.
The lack of transparency. And we've talked, for the last 4 years, we've talked a lot about some of the problems related to transparency. A lot of people do recognize that there is a problem. In fact, yesterday at the airport, I was talking to some egg farmers, and they do know that we need to do a better job in becoming more transparent towards the public, because a lot of city dwellers just don't understand agriculture. Only 1.6% of Canadians do live on a farm, and the younger generations are even farther from agriculture, because they probably don't even know anybody who've lived on the farms. The older folks, well, it wasn't 1.6% many years ago. It was more than that. So chances are, if you're 55 and up, you know someone who owned a farm, used to live on a farm, or are on a farm right now. But the younger generations are completely detached. And to me, that rural-urban divide can fuel bad policy for agri-food overall, because there are a lot of issues that I think are just misunderstood, and those those skewed perceptions will influence policy.
We saw a little bit of that yesterday. Our erstwhile environmental minister. I mean, the Liberals seem determined to lose the next election, letting this guy loose, because he said, that's it. We've put enough into infrastructure. We're going to stop. Get on the bus. Get on the bus. I mean, have you ever been in a pickup truck on the prairies? I mean, come on. Like, is it just the blatant grab for the youth?
I mean, he was.
Like,
Minister Guilbeault was probably inspired by Back to the Future, where there are no roads. Yes,
but I mean,
seriously, when you look at ports in Canada,
they're not in great shape.
They're not in great shape, and frankly, when you look at infrastructure, our position is quite anemic. I mean, we need more investment. It's the backbone. Logistics are the backbone of our agri-food economy. How can you not focus on infrastructure with the distances that we have across Canada? And I'm in the Atlantic. Everything is trucked in here.
Of course.
I mean, seriously, we need good roads, efficient roads, or else.
I mean, I guess if I took the other side, I mean, he was talking about more people moving around the city, but it does kind of get twisted into this.
It's an urban-centric government.
Right.
Minister Freeland has the same kind of speech. When she talks about infrastructure, transportation, you can feel that she's influenced by her days in Toronto. I mean, that's basically it. And,
if all the Liberals need to do, maybe to win the election, if any of them are listening, is just say, all right, we're all in. Let's take some money from some bunch of other files that is just hard to understand and put it into paying for free transportation for all the citizens of Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and whatever that thing is in Ottawa, that rail thing. Pay for all the citizens, get them off the road. All right, why don't we? I'm sure they can find the money to do that, and
with cities, with
the big cities, and then achieve the objective right away. Pull the money out of the carbon tax refunds
what, Michael?
Or something.
I'd vote for you.
I don't know.
I'd vote for you. I think we need to start a party. Infrastructure number one. We call it. Well, that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
And I would vote for that.
Well, anyway, let's get back to the report. I mean,
but it is. I mean, the what we're talking about is very much about the report, because it's about this disconnect. And so, as I said to MPs in Ottawa, we need to do a better job understanding agriculture. Okay, Minister Guilbeault's comment yesterday points to this misunderstanding that we're talking about.
Well, I think it is the broader misunderstanding of rural versus urban, and how people live in this country in the cities versus how they live in everywhere else, which is, anyway. Anyway, we'll put a link into the study. It's worth it. My 50 cents worth is there's response, and we've talked to people on this podcast over the years where several farmers have said, we kind of underestimated our need to explain ourselves. We thought everybody would just figure it out. So they've kind of taken ownership of that. They've tried different things, right? And, I think the one thing they haven't tried that I really liked in the U.S., I don't know if you saw this, is the Farmers Association of America. Maybe it's not them. They started a restaurant in Washington run by the association, and it tells the story of the food that's on people's plate, and it's a great restaurant. And little things like that, like they gotta start thinking out of the box, or out of the chicken coop, or out of the whatever, to really start getting their message across. That'd be my two pieces of advice. There you go.
They're good advice. They're good advice. Like I said, I'd vote for you. I think we need to talk about your campaign here. By the way, I was cited by Minister Guilbeault yesterday in Parliament.
You are Canada's food professor, according to our official opposition minister.
I don't know about that, but Minister Guilbeault did say that I claimed allegedly that the carbon tax has no impact on food prices. That is not what I said. I've never said that. No,
I think you've claimed we don't understand its impact on food prices.
Exactly, and we don't have enough data, and so we can't claim either way. And so economists that are saying that it has no impact. So actually, both sides of of Parliament actually kind of distorts what I've been saying about the carbon tax.
You're a puppet now. You're a puppet between the two parties.
I've been misquoted.
Pulled your
oh
strings.
My God.
Well, congratulations. At least you're in Hansard now. You know, your name has been officially spoken.
But the food professor, fine. Canada's food professor, no. That's I'm good.
Well, let's stick with politics. Let's talk about Bill C-282, an act to amend this is the official name, an act to amend the Department of Foreign Affairs Trade and Development Act. It is passed all the readings in the House, and I think it's at second reading in the Senate. So this is about to become.
That's right.
This is about to become law. I mean, with a few tweaks in the sober second thought.
Within a few months, yeah.
In the House of Sober Second Thought. So what are your thoughts? Basically, this is about supply management and trade. We've lost a few. We've lost a few judgments recently as a country, and some folks are mad at us. I think it was the New Zealand or Australians most recently.
I mean, again, I was in Ottawa yesterday, heard about my op-ed in relation to Bill C-282. For folks who are not familiar with 282, it's basically we would grant immunity to supply management sectors when we're going to be negotiating future trade deals with different countries, and that would probably include countries like the UK, China potentially. We have to think about other places around the world where we want to trade, and frankly, in agri-food, those are important markets. And so,
how does that work in a negotiation? You say, listen. China, America, whoever, you can't even talk to us about that. It's there's a law here. We can't even talk to you about that. Is that how?
Yeah, but the challenge, of course, is if you do that while you're negotiating and say, well, we're picking and choosing here. So do you want to trade with us or not? And trade deals are about enabling trade between two parties. And if everyone comes to the table and say, well, let's do it, make a deal, but don't touch. We don't want to talk about dairy. We don't want to talk poultry. We don't want to talk about eggs. It really handicaps negotiators' ability to negotiate anything. And when you look at the agri-food sector, well, 5% of farms in Canada are supply management. 5%. That's it. Okay. And so other groups like canola, the livestock industry like pork and beef, all of these sectors rely on trade deals to sell and grow. And frankly, we got a lot of resources. We've got a lot to offer to the rest of the world. So chances are, if we come in and say we can't talk about these things, it's going to be much harder to negotiate. And the United Kingdom just walked away a few weeks ago from Canada, trying to negotiate a deal with us. And one of the sticking point was dairy, and basically our position was not to allow more British cheese into the Canadian market. And so, to me, those are signals you don't want to send to the rest of the world. In other words, basically what you're saying to the rest of the world is that Canada is open for business, but it depends what you want to talk about.
Let's just stick on farmers for a little bit. I was reading this article in the U.S. U.S. cattle inventory hits a 73-year low.
Yeah.
I found that was incredible. There's an interview with
Did you look at the inventory in the U.S.?
Well, it was just I was shocked. I mean, we all know what that's going to lead to. Is the situation similar in Canada? Do we have a low inventory? And of course, a couple of years from now, that means the price of beef
pushing prices higher because inventories are low. There are a bunch of things happening here. Some producers are exiting, obviously, looking at the writing on the wall. But the other issue, of course, are droughts. Drought conditions are making feed more expensive.
Wait a minute. What's the writing on the wall? I would think that if cattle prices are going up,
there's more variety retail and in service. People are choosing different things.
You mean overall consumption of beef is down?
Per capita is down. Yeah, absolutely. It's been going down for years. It's no secret. And I think the pace is accelerating just because people have access to more options, whether it's in the Western world it's in the Western world, generally speaking.
That's what we're talking about,
Yeah, absolutely. With chicken and pork, the story is a bit different. But when it comes to beef, I mean, beef is a premium product, and so I'm not saying that more and more people are walking away from beef. They're just eating less of it. And so this week I was on a panel about the cattle industry, and some Americans were actually on the panel. And clearly, the numbers you saw, something going on here, and it's not going to go away.
Well, sticking with the U.S., they posted some food inflation numbers that actually went down. What was it, 2.6%? What does that mean for Canada? I mean,
I think it's going to help.
I was going to say there's got to be an upside. We import a lot of food, right?
I've always said that the sweet spot for food inflation in Canada is 1.5 to 2.5%. Well, the Americans are almost there. And obviously, over time, we tend to follow America. And so this is certainly good news. So we are, and both food economies are highly integrated. So it's just a matter of time before, the U.S. situation will actually bring our own rate lower. It's already happening. So we are expecting some solid numbers or some reassuring numbers next week from Statistics Canada.
You know, one of the things, and I'll finish on this and then we'll take a break and hear from our few words from our presenting sponsor, Cattle. You know, if I think back a couple of years with the outbreak of the Ukraine war, we were both very deeply worried about the supply of grain. I mean, basically the Ukraine's one big farm, basket of Eastern Europe or Europe. And article in the Globe and Mail talking about how they've been able to really get back to a very high percentage, about 2/3 of their pre-invasion levels.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty incredible what they've done. I mean, the quote there from the Ukrainians is the Russian war fleet's afraid to come to this point in the Black Sea. So I think there's some, there's not a lot of good news coming out of the Ukraine from food perspective, but this seems to be one of them, and that's got to help overall global food inflation. Yeah.
No, they did actually come up with some interesting strategies, and global food security was impacted over the short term, but not for the long term. So
we were talking famine, and we were pipe. There's a whole bunch of things that could have.
Markets did react quite negatively when Ukraine was invaded, and by the time we got to June or July of 2022, that's 2 years ago, we saw commodity prices just skyrocket, and it impacted the entire world, including Canada. But when the Black Sea deal ended, you could tell that grains are finding a market. Ukraine is still contributing, not as much as it used to, but it's still contributing, and Russia is actually finding ways to get their products to market. That's basically what's going on. So that's why there's a lot of calmness, and feed grain prices are much, much lower. So if you talk to the livestock industry, they'll be happy about that right now. But if you're growing grains, there's less money to be made this year. So it's going to be it's not going to be an easy year for grain producers, and of course, everything else going on with extra fees and things like that. So it's not going to be the banner year that we saw in 2022, for example.
Let's take a breakdown here. A few words from our presenting sponsor, Cattle. Ever feel like the world of ratings and reviews needed a superhero? Well, enter Cattle, the caped crusader with Canada's largest, most diverse, and daily active consumer panels. That's right, Cattle is not your average podcast sponsor. So why choose Cattle? Because Cattle excels in consumer insights from your consumer, while also blazing trails in the realm of ratings and reviews, pioneering the future landscape of user-generated content. Beyond the valuable syndicated receipt data, they stand as unparalleled collector of reviews at scale, irrespective of category or price point. A testament to their impact, partnerships with giants like Walmart, Canadian Tire, and more. Visit AskCattle.com now for an exclusive The Food Professor podcast listener discount on your first review or research campaign today. That's AskCattle.com. All right, let's move on to some results. Actually, some results that came out this week. RBI knocks the cover off the ball with a turnaround in Tim Hortons. Average profitability pre-pandemic per restaurant was about $320,000. It had really dipped, but now a 27% improvement up to not quite back where they were, but $280,000. They also talked about shaving a few seconds from the drive-through via their app, like 9 seconds, which actually led to an overall shaving of 2 seconds across country. I mean, such high volumes, a few seconds, every second matters, right? What did you think of the results coming out of Tim Hortons?
Not surprising. The turnaround is complete, I think. They had a few bad years, I think, but now they've come back. They went back to what they're good at on execution with a smaller menu.
I find the food is better too. I find for a while
they have focused on quality for sure, and it shows. I mean, fast food is not in a bad place right now. I mean, fast food is really responding well to the economy we have right now. Casual dining, fine dining, not so much, but fast food. I've been talking to a few folks in the industry, and they're doing very, very well. And
you know why fast food's doing better here than the U.S.? Can't get Ozempic in Canada. Right? It's coming. It's coming. Like it's a huge. We're talking about it in the U.S. all the time. You know,
I'm still trying to find some data about that. I mean, it's just not easy to get in Canada, right?
No, both ways.
Because
both the product and the product.
In the U.S., there's actually there's more data about Ozempic usage or GL1s because there are many drugs now. But in Canada, it's still unclear as to how many people are actually using these drugs and how is it is impacting the food industry overall. So there's lots of speculation out there. Now, we don't want to comment on whether or not these drugs are good or not. That's not our focus. Is how this movement is impacting the food industry.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you it's impacting the Instagram influencer industry because if you see an Instagram influencer, they're on Ozempic. There you go.
Probably.
That would be my assessment.
They haven't gained weight, I assume.
Let's move to the MTY Food Group. Let's call it MIDI, reported fourth quarter profit of more than double compared to last year. Now, if you don't know MIDI, they're just a host of brands. I'll name a few: Baton Rouge, Big Smoke, Restaurant Giorgio, Juice, Jugo Juice, Manchu Wok. So everything from muffins is theirs, mucho burrito. So a lot of the things, cast of characters you'd find in a shopping mall kind of food court, but also, some standalone stuff, Thai Express and all that. But they posted some good numbers, actually. It made me think of, it's interesting these things were kind of posted coinciding with the release of or the end of the CERB and the kind of the big, threat to the small operators who had to pay back loans and maybe couldn't pay them back, and those who did. This bifurcation continues, right? I mean, this bigger organizations just have the leverage to win,
to support, absolutely.
And it does.
My concern is that in 10, 15 years from now, we are going to be eating the same thing. If we go out, we're going to have. Yeah, I mean, it's the food sector, because of what you're talking about, may become more homogeneous. And in food service, we have seen a lot of innovation over the years. And will we see less innovation overall? I don't know. But I'm very concerned about how homogeneous the sector is becoming, unfortunately.
Well, I think, I might describe it as bifurcated. So on Monday, I was in the great city of Montreal, which was a strange experience for me, not being in Montreal, of course. I went to McGill. I'm wearing my new McGill jersey.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
But there was no snow, and it was 2 degrees. And everybody was talking about
February.
it. I was having the pleasure of hosting some retailers from Australia.
And you didn't go to the Sugar Shack?
We did not. We had a day, and so we went to a bunch of places. Where I'm going with this, by the way, in case the listeners at this point are wondering what I'm talking about, is Monday. I don't know if you know, in Montreal, Mondays it's hard to find a good restaurant or any restaurant because they all close, right? They
all close,
break. But there's one
and barbershops.
And I don't know about that, but anyway.
It's true, yeah.
We went to a restaurant called Monarch. So shout out to the people at Monarch. It is I think it's ranked the top 42 of 100 restaurants, and it was open and it was close to where we were in downtown. And they said they had the best steak they've ever had. Like, these are Australians who travel the world, and they travel the world. And they said, "This is one of the best steaks they ever had." So
really?
It's this bifurcation, right? The high end, obviously, it was not an inexpensive restaurant. We chose it because of it. But you've got the lower mass, and then you got the higher end. I think you're right. In the middle, that's where they're going to struggle. But they had a great menu, and shout out to them. And by the way, it was super interesting. We toured a bunch of places, and we actually went into a Costco, and they have Costco in Australia. So we were in Laval, and we went into a Costco, and their eyes just widened. On the physical size of it, it was bigger than what they were used to. Yeah. We were there at like 1:00 in the afternoon on Monday, and it was rammed full of people, and the baskets were filled, and they actually sold wine there. And
it's Quebec. Yeah, absolutely.
We were looking at some of their wine brands from Australia, but they were just amazed.
Oh, they carry wine from Australia.
They had two brands, Smoky Bay, which at first we thought was a made up brand because it was a box wine, but it turned out it wasn't. It's carried by several liquor retailers in Canada, and they had another one. But anyway, they were like, yeah, we don't drink Smoky Bay. We've never heard of Smoky Bay. Anyway, the net is, and we saw that in some of the Costco results this year, this quarter. I think they were up 6-7%. So this bifurcation continues, right? I mean, as you know, going to Costco is a way to have, as a consumer, a lot of value because you get large sizes. You've got to be able to afford that large size, though.
That's right.
Versus the opposite end of the scale, maybe you're shopping at a Dollarama where you're getting, spending less and you're just buying what I call cash flow shopping. So anyways, very interesting. And it just points to this bifurcation. I do as well worry about innovation. I guess we'll see that at the restaurant show. Hopefully you'll be there. Hopefully you'll be invited. Anybody from Restaurants Canada listening, have you invited Sylvain yet? I'm not going if he's not going.
Oh my God.
I'm not going. I'm laying it down right now. If you're not there, I'm not going.
Michael is taking a killer position.
I am not going if he's not going. There you go. Hey, I wanted to wrap this episode by and dedicate this episode to Bob of Bob's Red Mill, which is a great organic food product. He passed at 94 last week. If you're aware of this product, he passed it. As I said, he passed at 94. He gave the business to his employees in 2010, actually, celebrating his 81st birthday through a stock ownership plan.
Wow.
Was a big fan of Canada, apparently, according to some articles I read. Loved coming to Vancouver, and he launched Bob's Red Mill, which you'd find on the shelves of most grocers, in 1978 with his wife. So salute to Bob. I use the product myself. It's great product, some organic stuff, all natural, and great quality product. So a salute to Bob from Bob's
Salute
Red
to
Mill.
Bob.
All right, well,
that's great.
That's great. All right, well, that's it for this show. We'll be back next week, of course. And if you're listening to us now, you're wondering, did I miss it? Yeah, we're a few hours late. Both of us were in the midst of traveling. It doesn't happen often, but I'm actually off mic. I'm actually surprised it doesn't happen more often.
That's right.
Kind of. But we work really hard to get on mic for the people, and we really enjoy. I enjoy my time immensely with you on mic. So
indeed.
As I said, next week we'll be back. I will be back with an interview with Remilk. We got lots more interviews coming your way. And for here, let's leave it there. I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer growth consultant, podcaster, and you are?
And I'm the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
All right, everybody. Safe travels and see you next week.
Take care.